Menopause does not have to be miserable. Yes, we're going to age, and yes, our hormones are going to change. But what we do not have to feel is that we do not have to feel old. A big part of aging has to do with hormones. We know that. It happens slowly, so slowly that we barely notice it until it's a little bit along the journey. And then one day you wake up and think, wait, why do I suddenly feel older? You might feel tired, weak, run down, even though you didn't change anything, more depressed or moody, brain fog, weight gain, and you look around and you realize your friends are saying the same things. These symptoms are common, but that does not mean that they're normal or that we have to accept them. Getting your hormones into balance is a key part of aging well. Today, we're going to talk about balancing your hormones in the face of menopause and perimenopause and what you need to know before considering HRT. Big fan of HRT, but there's a lot of things we need in place before hormone replacement therapy. Welcome to the Medical Disruptor, where smart, well-versed humans get the answers they won't hear anywhere else. I'm Dr. E, the NP with a PhD, and I help humans go from medically gaslit to medically empowered. Solo episodes like this are for deep dives into a topic with references in the descriptions, and guest episodes introduce you to the most cutting-edge medical providers in the world. So let's get into it. I always like to start with a few definitions because menopause gets talked about like it's this one thing when it's really a transition with stages. And if you don't know which stage you're in, it's easy to chase the wrong solution. So let's first figure out what menopause is. Menopause is a point in time. It's not a long season. It's clinically defined as 12 months in a row without a period. And it usually happens somewhere between 45 and 55. Perimenopause is the run-up. It's the transition years before menopause when hormones start fluctuating more noticeably. For some women, that's about 6 years, but for others, it could be 10 plus years that you're in perimenopause. And this is why two women the same age can feel completely different. The timeline and the pattern are highly individual. So if you're thinking, I'm not in menopause yet, this can't be hormonal, perimenopause is often the missing piece and it is super hormonal. Next definition is hormones. What are hormones? Hormones are chemical messengers. They're tiny signals your body uses to coordinate big jobs: energy, metabolism, mood, sleep, appetite, inflammation, body temperature, and yes, reproduction. And there are many categories of hormones, but the big buckets we're dealing with in this episode are metabolic hormones, like insulin, that regulate blood sugar and how your body stores or uses fuel. Stress hormones, like cortisol, that shape your nervous system, sleep, and resilience. Thyroid hormones that influence your baseline energy, weight regulation, and brain function. And then, yes, sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. But here's the key point. When people say hormone imbalance, they usually think that they mean sex hormones, but in real life, sex hormones don't live in isolation. If insulin is dysregulated, if cortisol is a mess, if your thyroid's not functioning, you can feel like your estrogen is the problem when it's actually the other hormones that are a problem. So today we're going to do this in the order your body actually works. Insulin first, then stress hormones, then thyroid, and only then are we going to talk about sex hormones and hormone replacement therapy. That way, you're not treating the headline while missing the things that are driving it. So let's start with insulin. Yes, insulin is a hormone, and when it's off, it can disrupt your sex hormones also. It influences things like testosterone and something called SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin, which affects how much hormone is actually available for you to use. We're not going to trace every step of the biochemistry today, but here's what you need to know. If insulin is dysregulated, if it's a mess, we have to start there. It doesn't make sense to start with the sex hormones if insulin's a mess. It doesn't make sense to fine-tune estrogen, progesterone, testosterone while blood sugar is driving all the chaos. So just because your sugars or your A1C look normal in your doctor's office doesn't mean you don't have insulin resistance. Okay, so if your A1C is up, for sure we have insulin resistance. But for some of you have a normal A1C, and you still might be insulin resistant because it shows up years before diabetes. So a normal fasting glucose or A1C doesn't always mean that your metabolism is on point. It just means you haven't crossed the big line yet, that A1C line. There are some more specific tests out there, but practically, here are some clues that insulin resistance is part of your picture. First, if your diet's inconsistent, right? If it's inconsistent, you know the truth. I don't have to tell you, you know. If you've gained weight, especially around the middle, if your cholesterol is creeping up slowly, if your energy is struggling, if you're super tired after meals, insulin resistance is a reasonable suspect, even if your A1C is normal. So where do you start? First, I'm sorry, lower the carbs I didn't say no carbs. I didn't say zero carbs. I just said like take it easy on the frappuccinos, okay? Like lower the carbs. And then increase your movement. Notice I didn't say go to the gym or go to CrossFit. I just said walk. Like walking counts, okay? Old sneakers. You don't even need to buy new ones. And then prioritize protein. Ugh, if I could say this. Prioritize protein. That doesn't mean to go eat an entire cow all day, 5 times a day. It just means prioritize it. Because muscle is one of your best metabolic allies. And during perimenopause and menopause, maintaining muscle gets harder because the declining sex hormones make it easier to lose lean mass. So this isn't about dieting. This isn't about calorie restriction. It's about building a body that can handle the transition. So get your nutritional house in order first. Fixing insulin is one of the most powerful first steps for balancing everything else. Okay? Don't skip that and go straight to HRT. Please, please, please. Thanks. Next, we need to talk about your adrenals, your cortisol, okay? Your stress system. Because during perimenopause and menopause, a lot of women start to feel irritable, anxious, you're wired at night, but you're exhausted during the day, more trouble sleeping, and sometimes more hot flashes. And these symptoms get labeled as just hormones, which they are, but we also have to talk about the stress hormones. And supporting the adrenals really matters because one of their key jobs is to produce cortisol, your primary stress hormone. So here's why that matters. Stress hormones and sex hormones come from the same starting material. Your body takes the cholesterol and turns it into pregnenolone. Who cares? And pregnenolone goes down different paths. And when stress is constant, your body prioritizes survival and will take that raw material and divert it to cortisol. There's a term for it called pregnenolone steal, but who cares? All you need to know is that when you're stressed, the raw material is going to get diverted away from making sex hormones. So you can be thinking like, my sex hormones are the problem, but what's really happening is that cortisol is hogging up the ingredients. And that's why it's so important to steady your stress response before you jump into sex hormones. I've covered the concept of adrenal fatigue in other episodes. If you want to know more about it, check it out. But here's the point I want you to remember for now. A lot of symptoms people assume are purely hormonal, meaning sex hormones, can actually be stress system driven. Fatigue, weight gain, brain fog, body aches, even hot flashes. And for many women, when we address this with the basics, I know they're so boring, but you really need them. Nutrition, sleep support, targeted supplements, their symptoms improve dramatically, sometimes without needing hormone therapy at all. I promise you, we're going to get to that part. But next up is thyroid. We have to look at your thyroid, or at the very least, we have to make sure that you have the right testing so you actually know what's happening, because a lot of women get told that thyroid is fine based on one number. And I'm going to say it again for the people in the back. TSH alone is not enough. I'm sure I have an episode somewhere about thyroid, but TSH alone is not enough. And if you're one of my patients, I know that I've drawn you a picture, but TSH is not enough. Here's the simple overview. And if you're my patient, you have one of my pictures somewhere. We should frame them. Actually, don't. They're horrible. But your brain makes TSH, okay? Your TSH tells your thyroid to produce T4, which T4 is like the storage form of your thyroid hormone. And then your body converts the T4 into T3. T3 is what does all the work. And you can also make something called reverse T3, which can really mess the picture with stress and inflammation. So at a minimum, you want TSH, free T4, free T3, and reverse T3, right? Like at a minimum, how is TSH possibly enough if I just explained that whole system to you? And then there's one more major piece. Thyroid antibodies. Antibodies matter because you can have normal thyroid hormone levels, but meanwhile, your immune system is quietly attacking the thyroid. So you may not look like hypothyroid, but if your body's already struggling, you'll know when you have tests for antibodies. This is why, by the way, so many women are walking around fatigued, gaining weight, feeling low or foggy, thinking it must be menopause, or thinking their testosterone is tanked when the real issue is thyroid dysfunction. So get your thyroid checked appropriately, treat it if you need to, medicate when indicated, or targeted support when it's appropriate for your situation. Because once your thyroid is optimized, the rest of the hormone conversation finally starts to make sense. Okay, now we could talk about the sex hormone, right? You worked on your insulin, you supported your adrenals, your thyroid is optimized, you're eating better, you're sleeping better, you're taking the right supplements, but you're still not yourself. Maybe the hot flashes are better, but your mood is off. Maybe your energy is improved, but you still feel flat or foggy or not like you. Maybe you're doing all the right things and you're still wondering what's missing. So now you're thinking, okay, can we finally talk about sex hormones or whether I actually need hormone therapy? Yes. Of course.
Okay, here's a commercial break that's not really a commercial break because I'm not selling anything. I made you a free guide that will show you exactly how to track patterns, document symptoms, and get taken seriously. I called it Build a Case, the skills you already use everywhere else, but now you're going to use them here. Click the link in the description to get your copy. Now back to the show.
By the way, as I said earlier, spoiler alert, I'm a huge fan of BHRT, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, because at the end of the day, when you get to a certain age, you're just not going to be able to make those hormones. And so you need to replace somehow. Okay, that's why it's called hormone replacement therapy. You might hear the term HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy. You might hear the term bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Sometimes we'll use them interchangeably, but there is a little bit of a difference. So let me help you understand so you're actually being offered so you can make an informed decision. Let's start with traditional HRT, which is what many people are being offered in conventional settings. So a common scenario says, hey, I'm really struggling with menopause, I have high flashes, and you might be offered medications like Premarin or Prempro. Premarin is an estrogen product, and Prempro is Premarin plus progestin. And it sounds like, okay, estrogen, progesterone, what's the problem? The problem is that those particular types, Premarin is something called a conjugated estrogen, which is originally derived from pregnant horse urine. And Prempro combines that estrogen with something called a synthetic progestin, which is not the same as bioidentical progesterone. Now, that doesn't automatically make it bad or dangerous for everyone, but it does matter because many of the earlier studies and much of the risk conversation around hormone therapy involved these specific formulations and those dosing approaches. So when someone says HRT is risky, they're probably not talking about bioidentical hormones because not all hormones are the same and not the same dosing either. So let's move on to bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, BHRT. And these hormones are designed to be chemically identical to the hormones your body makes, which makes more sense, right? Like estradiol and micronized progesterone. They're still manufactured, don't get me wrong. They're not, coming from someone's backyard. But the goal is to get chemically closer to match human physiology. Not only that, but usually when we're doing BHRT, it's usually prescribed in much lower doses, tailored to what you need and delivered in different ways. Sometimes it's transdermal, sometimes it's under the tongue, depending on the plan and the provider. Either way, bioidentical hormone therapy is essentially about replacing what's declining, what you're missing, in a way that's intended to match your physiology more closely. For the right person, the goal is not just more hormones for the sake of hormones. The goal is a better balance, better function, better quality of life. It is connected to so many things. Which brings me to the second part of the conversation. Some people think that hormone therapy is only for symptom relief, like hot flashes. So they say, oh, I don't have hot flashes, I don't need it. Now, yes, if you have symptom relief, it's a completely valid reason to use it. But there's also a prevention-oriented conversations that when we're talking about hormones, especially around bone health, metabolic health, prevention of Alzheimer's, prevention of heart issues. So when we're talking about hormones, we're talking about a really strong longevity play. And I have many episodes that go deep into this. But either way, it should be a personalized decision based on your history, your risk factors, your symptoms, your goals, with a clinician who can screen for contraindications and monitor appropriately. As always, I'm not telling you anything. I'm here to provide direction. So if you're looking for a BHRT provider, here are some few practical filters. First, work with someone who will individualize dosing and monitor you over time. This is not a one and done thing. Second, I would say be cautious with pellets. Pellets are something called bioidentical, but they're not bioidentical because you can't adjust the dose. Once they're in your skin, they're in your skin. In many cases, creams, patches, sublingual options really afford more flexibility and fine tuning. Now, I've mentioned different hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And one of the biggest myths about menopause is that it's only about estrogen going down. So a common story goes like this. You go to the GYN, you describe your symptoms, you're offered estrogen, but more likely the Premarin kind. And yes, estrogen does decline over time. It's true. But for many women, the more accurate issue isn't too little estrogen, it's imbalance, especially during perimenopause when hormones can swing. And progesterone is the one that usually drops first. So estrogen and progesterone are meant to work as a team. When progesterone goes down, estrogen becomes dominant, meaning you may not have high estrogen, but you have too much estrogen relative to progesterone. And this can start early, right? So if we're talking about menopause being like this decline, this up and down is where perimenopause lives. And in that time, progesterone is the issue. During this time of perimenopause, your estrogen might not even be low yet. right? There's a few reasons. First of all, body fat can convert hormones into estrogen. So if you have higher body fat, that can mean higher estrogen. Chronic stress can suppress progesterone, which creates this big imbalance. And we're living in a world of environmental estrogen like exposures, plastic, pesticides, receipt paper from your CVS. It all translates into more estrogen. So true estrogen deficiency can happen, but that's much later on in the menopause story. But in the perimenopause, it's not so much about replacing estrogen, but it's more about restoring balance. And usually that's done by addressing progesterone that drops. So progesterone is usually the first one that we add, especially during perimenopause. And then later on, we add the estrogen. If you're not sure if you're progesterone deficient, first of all, the age, if you're like mid 40s, and then you suddenly have breast tenderness or hot flashes, mood swings, fatigue, weight gain. But the classic one is insomnia. Okay. If you are suddenly went from sleeping soundly to not being able to sleep at all, before you run for the Ambien, you most likely need some progesterone. And this is why it's not about just adding estrogen. It's really about starting the progesterone first and then adding the estrogen later. Again, this all depends on what age you're actually seeking this help. If you're postmenopausal, it's a little bit different. If you're peri, it's different. But the bottom line is a one-size-fits-all prescription misses what's happening. Menopause and perimenopause is about shifting balance, figuring out where you are between estrogen and progesterone. But most importantly, you are not supposed to just live through it or push through it. Okay, that's a form of medical gaslighting. Just because your clinician may not be comfortable in HRT doesn't mean that you have to suffer. Okay, if you're in your 40s and you're suffering, please find something, please find a clinician that can help you get the right answers. Don't just push through it. We can't leave the conversation without talking about testosterone as well, because testosterone matters for women also. It could influence vaginal dryness, bone density, mood, and motivation. If you suddenly do not care about getting anything done, it's probably your testosterone. If you are absolutely exhausted, it's probably your testosterone. And then, of course, it's libido and brain fog. So it's not just a symptom hormone. In the right context, testosterone can help support lean mass, and we need mass for longevity. It can play a role in overall balance alongside estrogen and progesterone. And like everything else, it all depends on how much, the route, and whether you're the right candidate. Okay, let's put this all together. First, menopause is a real physiological transition. The symptoms you're feeling usually have identifiable drivers. And when you address them in the right order, you stop wasting time on fixes that only work for like a moment. Second, hormones are a full body communication system. Insulin, cortisol, thyroid hormones, and sex hormones all interact. So before you run to replace estrogen or progesterone or testosterone, you want the foundations to be stable, because blood sugar issues, stress physiology, and thyroid dysfunction can create menopause-like symptoms or make the menopause symptoms feel much worse. You should address hormones in this order. Start with insulin and your sugar regulation. Support your stress. Check your thyroid correctly. Then you test your sex hormones and make decisions based on your patterns, not on guesswork, not on a protocol. And third, if hormone replacement therapy is part of your plan, details matter. Pay attention to which hormones, what dose, what route, and for which person. But most importantly, you're not stuck. You don't have to white knuckle your way through this. You don't have to accept being brushed off or minimized. This is a solvable puzzle when you approach it in the right order, with the right tools and the right provider. That's the work, but that's also the good news. And that brings us to the end of another episode of the Medical Disruptor. And this is what disruption looks like. Not blaming, not dismissing, but exposing the limits of the system and refusing to stop the conversation. This community exists because too many people were told they were fine when they weren't. You're allowed to ask questions. You're allowed to challenge assumption. And you don't have to choose between science and skepticism. If you want tools you can actually use, head to medicaldisruptor.com. You can search any topic and find the episode with info you need. You'll also find the book, practical PDFs, and my newsletter, where we break down what the system does well, where it fails, and how to navigate care without losing your mind. Until then, keep asking questions, keep asking for more, and keep disrupting.